Hi, everyone. Did you want to give a rundown, Neil?
Yeah, move to the next slide, please.
Yep.
Right, we're going to be doing a double presentation, which is really difficult on online, because we'll miss each other's cues quite considerably, I think. I'll do a brief introduction to the talk and hand over mostly to Alex, and I'll be interrupting him from time to time as I have things to add to the presentation. It's quite a short and to the point presentation, and we're going to try to elaborate it with some explanations of what happens in real clients when they use Dbtvault. Anyway, I'm Neil Strange. I'm the handsome one on the left. I'm the founder and CEO of Datavault over here in the UK, and we are known as being the authors of and publishers of the Dbtvault tool, which is a free open source tool for Datavault generation. Alex?
Hello. Yeah, so I'm the lead developer of Dbtvault. I'm a consultant data engineer here at Datavault. My background's in computer science, and I love what I do. Okay, what else can I say?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that when you have your evenings off, you go to do programming for fun, don't you? So, a real nerd in the space, but that's great. Okay, so do you want to move on to the next slide then, please?
Yep. Okay.
What's that? I didn't hear that.
Sorry, anyone got a question there? Jumping in. Okay, so we're going to cover 6 topics off in the discussion today. So why would you use Dbtvault? What is it? Some of the features that you get with the package. Quick tour of Dbtvault, what it looks like. What's coming next in downstream for development, and how to get started. So move on.
We're also going to be looking at a number of case studies as well.
Yeah, in a couple of case studies. Move on. Right, so when we've looked at clients who picked up on Dbtvault, these are the sort of reasons why why they're interested in the tool itself. Obviously, automating the hard stuff, so getting all the SQL written in a correct way that handles all the edge cases of data loads in a performant way.
Dependencies.
Yeah, dependencies and stuff. We've been able to create Datavault 2 data warehouses fast, so get started really quickly and get results out within minutes generally once you get started on this. It's very good at supporting rapid prototyping. DBT itself is the main driver of that. DBT is designed for data engineers to use, and it supports a sort of short iterative development time cycles. It's really good in that respect. It's entirely metadata driven, so the macros generate the SQL. You just provide metadata inside the models to allow that to work, and Alex will show how that works a bit later. It's free and open source, so it's yours to take. You can view the code that's in there, modify it to your heart's content. And we have a growing and active community in there. And we know this is popular because we've seen about a 400% growth in our traffic to our DBT sites since the beginning of the year. So increasingly popular and attractive for people to look at. Okay, Alex, I'll let you pick up now, and I'll let you drive.
Just something to add on there. Our community is mainly based in Slack, and that's doubled in size in the last 2 months or so. So we're doing something right, apparently. Right. Okay, so where does it fit in? Well, the DBT itself and Dbtvault comes in at your transform and load into the raw vault layer. So assuming you already have extracted data from your source and you have it in a persistent staging area or similar, what we do is we take that data, you provide the metadata, Dbtvault takes that data, puts it into your raw vault via generating it, and then it's free to do with what you want. So you can add your business vault, you can add your presentation layers, your marts, etc. So it's basically that bit in the middle there. The other thing to add as well is it keeps dependencies intact. So that's one of the major things that DBT does, is that It manages all the dependencies between your sources. Lets you see full lineage and much more. So we'll get onto that shortly as well. Anything you want to add, Neil?
I'll jump in when you need to. You carry on.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So one of the major use cases for Dbtvault is because it's free. It really lowers the barrier to entry. Allows you to get up and running. You can start experimenting. You can learn a lot about the Datavault methodology itself. Because you don't have to necessarily pay for an expensive tool. You know, you could maybe download it and experiment with it over a weekend, or in your lunch break. It's really that simple. So you can demonstrate Datavault 2 to your organization, your stakeholders, prove the value. If you decide then you need a larger tool, then you can invest in a larger tool because you've already proven it works. This was the primary reason we started developing Dbtvault, because we needed something to go into our clients with, show them that Datavault 2 could be the answer to their problems, and show them how it worked. And this was a really easy way to do that. Although increasingly with our clients, we are actually seeing them use Dbtvault in production. As our test harnesses has grown more robust and more comprehensive, and we've added more features, it's starting to increasingly get more and more useful for production, and we're seeing a lot of production value. So we're quite excited about that, and we're always looking to add more features and more robustness to it. So I guess let's look at a deeper dive into what DBT and Dbtvault itself are. So DBT itself is also an open source tool. It's primarily command line, although there is an online offering. So there is something called DBT Cloud, which is essentially the same thing, but as a software as a service online, and that runs in the cloud. So you don't necessarily have to have on-prem. The main power is that it adds a powerful templating language called Ginger 2. So if anyone has used Django or any templating language in Python, it's likely to be Ginger 2. And that essentially sort of converts SQL into a fully blown programming language. So adds lots of real power to it. You can start doing for loops, you can start adding variables in, and that's really the essence of how we generate the raw vault. Is we've got SQL that's heavily parameterized, that is fed from your metadata. So it's as Neil previously said, it's built for data analysts and engineers. It is really designed for quick iterations. Oh, this doesn't work, let's quickly modify that variable over here. Okay, that works now. Is designed with the data engineer in mind. So I'm a big fan personally.
I think I'd add to that, Alex, that they also have added a lot of functionality recently in DBT for testing. So it allows you to start doing test-driven development in there, which is a really powerful way of developing quality code.
Yes, yeah. So as we can see from the diagram here, they add a lot of functionality for testing. They generate a whole documentation website for each and every DBT project. It's fully integrated with version control. There's alerting, logging, all kinds of things in there, and they're increasingly adding more features. I think they got a 1.4 million investment, from crowdfunding last year. So we're Dbtvault being built inside the DBT system ecosystem is very much we get a lot of advantages from being built on DBT essentially. Okay, so I'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so Dbtvault itself. The idea is that you only provide metadata, and that metadata is essentially going to look like column names from your source. So you provide the column names. We output a hub, we output a satellite, we output a link, everything in the raw vault essentially. We're extensively documented. I'm a bit obsessive about documenting things as much as possible. We've got a big old documentation website that's very detailed. There's lots of examples in there. We've got links to all the source code, so we're not we're very open about all of it. We've got an example project as well. So for those of you who've used Snowflake before, they provide a default TPCH data set with every Snowflake account. And we have a example project that uses Dbtvault to convert or transform that TPCH data set into a Datavault warehouse. And of course, as I mentioned, we've got fully templated raw vault structures provided by Dbtvault. Currently, we only run on Snowflake, but we are developing in the background support for things like BigQuery, and we're looking at things like SQL Server as well, Postgres. So that's all coming, but at the moment it's just Snowflake. Okay, so this is a bit more detail from the diagram that you saw earlier. So essentially, again, assuming that you've got a PSA or a data lake or your source systems in the staging area, we essentially do the transformation in the middle to get that into your raw stage. So we provide hashing. We provide a staging macro that does all your hashes for the raw vault. You can provide derived values, any extra calculated fields that you may need. You can set your constants and much more with that. We've got a very powerful staging functionality in there. And then, of course, we create hubs link satellites. We also support effectivity satellites. We're working on things like multi-active satellites, lots of the different raw vault structures. And then, of course, you can build your business vault. We're currently working on pits and bridges. So we don't support the business vault just yet, but we're working towards that so that we have a full end-to-end. And we're really excited about getting that last bit of it working. Anything you want to? I believe you might want to add something to that, Neil.
No, you carry on. That's fine.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, I'll move on to the next slide. Okay. So of course, a lot of these features are from DBT. So things like being able to execute the whole data load in parallel. That's a result of the way Datavault itself works, of course, because all your hubs, links, satellites, they can all load from staging. They don't have any dependencies on each other. And DBT is multi-threaded. So if you've got, say, 20 hubs, 40 satellites, whatever, and you set the thread count to 16, it can do 16 of those in one go. Very fast in that regard. DBT generates all your data lineage diagrams. It works out dependencies so that it loads those things in the right order. So if it needs to create a stage before a set of hubs, then it will do that. And as I mentioned, it generates a documentation website. That documentation website will have all your tests in. It will show all of the compiled SQL. It will show all of your files pre-compilation. It will have all your metadata in there. It's very extensive and quite pretty as well. I do like the documentation website that gets generated. We have actually added a number of bespoke loading processes. So we have some special functionality that allows you to iterate through periods of time. So load your data day by day or week by week. You can go lower than that, although I wouldn't advise going into milliseconds. And then, of course, we provide a number of macros, not just for generating the raw vault, but also for for other things. Let me think of something off the top of my head. For example, we provide a number of special macros for essentially compiling your metadata in certain ways and cleaning things up and helper functionality, all kinds of things. And because we've got it it's fully extensible. You can add your own functionality. You can override our functionality if you want to modify something. It's very highly configurable. Okay. So the process essentially is, you do need to do a certain amount of analysis of your data up front. You need to understand what your data model will look like. You need to know what hubs, links, satellites you want to create, and then all you have to do is provide the columns that you want to go into those hubs, links, satellites in your raw vault. You run DBT and you get the output. So you don't have to write any SQL yourself. It really is 100% metadata driven.
I think I'd add to that point that DBT creates tables for you, so you don't even need to have the DDL to create the Datavault components. They're output as an effect of the first run you do with DBT.
Yeah, so one of the key points of DBT is everything is a select statement. So all you have to do is write your select statement. Once you run DBT, it wraps your select statement in the DDL. So create view, create table, whatever you've configured it to be, it does all that for you. So you just have to write the select statement. And obviously with Dbtvault, you don't even have to do that. You just provide the metadata.
You're now 15 minutes in.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's look at some case studies. So we've been working with a large insurance business in the US, and they are dealing with 300+ billion row feeds. And one of their primary things is that they split the project across 5 different teams. So you've got one team working on the presentation area, you've got one team working on a particular part of the finance model. So they've got ownership of a couple of hubs and a couple of other structures, and everyone's having to do and collaborate with this and make sure they're not stepping on anyone's toes. A lot of this is solved by Datavault itself, but it's quite important to note that Dbtvault and of course DBT allow for a lot of flexibility in how the data is loaded, how the structures are defined. You can add in environment variables, which is really useful when you have different teams and you want to deploy to different schemas or databases, all kinds of things. So it's actually been running very smoothly across all these different parallel teams. And of course, the parallelism of Snowflake also really helps with where their loading processes. They've got some very complicated data. So everything, DBT, Datavault 2 as well has been a really great help in smoothing that out. And of course, so you may have heard me mention the word macro. A macro in DBT is essentially a function. It takes parameters as input, it outputs, it returns a value or a data set or whatever. And essentially, we've been able to write business rules as functions, and you accept a few parameters, you make a transformation, you output the result of that transformation, and it's been incredibly, it's been very testable because of that. It's been very robust. People can say, oh, I need to do this transformation, and another part of the team said, oh, we've already built a macro that does that transformation, so just reuse this. You don't have to rewrite it, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've also fully tested it, so you can be sure it works. Really quite powerful stuff. And our clients have needed new structures or needed us to develop new functionality specifically for their use cases, and we've been able to do that because of our really big test harness that we've got behind Dbtvault that makes sure it's very robust, and we've been able to rapidly develop because of that. So yeah, it's all been really interesting working with this particular client. So let's have a look at some of the features in more detail. So as I mentioned, we do the standard hubs, links, and satellites for the raw vault. We also support transactional or non-historized links, effectivity satellites, staging. I'll get onto things that we're bringing out in the future soon. So I also mentioned that we've got a number of custom materializations. So materialization is a DBT phrase for essentially it's a very fancy macro that essentially controls how a structure, so a table or a view, is created and populated with data in the database. So you might have it's just created as a table and then dropped every time. You might have a view that, of course, is just a view, so it's recalculated each time. You have also the concept of something being incremental. So you have a table and then you only want to load in the records that have changed. We've added 2 new materializations that allow you to, as I said, load in data. So it's a table that you iterate through your data by day. And we've also introduced what we believe is quite a unique concept with rank loading. So you can load in your data in order of an arbitrary rank. So those of you who know about window functions, which is probably most of you, you can load it. You can define a rank and say, I want to order my data like this, and you can load in that arbitrary order. So it's very versatile. If you want to load your data in a particular way because you've got some weird data, you can load it in any arbitrary order you want to. So we believe that's really powerful, and we're quite excited about that particular feature. So we're always making improvements as well. So we've recently made a number of different fields optional to give people more options for how they want to structure their raw vault, different modeling options. We're always making optimizations to the SQL, make it more performant. And we've also recently added extension support. So like I said, if people want to override functionality, if they want to add their own functionality, if they want to enhance functionality that we've added, then they can, and they can also contribute back as well. So that's really good there.
You're 21 minutes in.
Okay, I'll finish up quickly then. So I think I've already covered the staging. I think the main point with the staging is it's powerful because it's configurable. You can say, if I want to generate a hash, you just provide the columns that you want in your hash, and it will automatically go and apply all the standard Datavault to hashing standards, and you get a hash key out. It's that simple. I'll keep that short. Talked about the period and rank load materializations. Again, very excited about those. So this is a hub. So essentially, you've got the metadata at the top here. You say, okay, my source is this particular view or table, whatever. I want my primary key to be this and my natural key to be this. And then you call the hub macro. So the hub macro at the bottom there. And you just essentially provide those variables, those values to the hub, and out you get a hub. That's it. This is what data lineage looks like in DBT. So this is actually an interactive diagram. Obviously, this is just a screenshot, but in the documentation website, you can drag and drop these satellites around. You can export the PNGs of your diagram. And this is all inferred from the code. So this is completely generated. You don't have to do any of this yourself. You can filter this diagram. You can say, I only want to see the satellites, please. It's really very powerful. I really love the lineage, the way they handle lineage in DBT. So we've proven that it's performant at high volumes. Again, I'll go over this quickly, but this is 100 million plus rows loaded into the TPCH Datavault model I mentioned earlier on Snowflake using an extra small warehouse, which is their lowest compute power node, essentially. And it did this in 3 minutes and 6 seconds, so very powerful. In real world scenarios, we've seen that scale up very well as well. I believe that's a repeated slide. Sorry about that. So as I mentioned, coming soon, you've got multi-active satellites, extended record tracking satellites, outer sequence loading capabilities for when you get records coming in late or in a weird order, and of course pits and bridges, which we're really happy about developing because that'll bring a lot of add a lot of value to Dbtvault. I won't go into too much detail on this, but essentially we're also working on a CLI tool, a companion CLI tool that will help people ingest metadata from other third-party tools such as Irwin, for example, so that when we say, oh, you just have to provide the metadata, you won't even have to do that anymore. You'll just say, okay, I want to get the metadata from this tool that I've already built a model in. Please link it into Dbtvault and just press run. So we essentially want to get as much automation as possible, take out as much human error as possible and just make your lives easier. So yeah, if you want to get started, we actually have a workshop coming up, but essentially you need to install DBT in Python environment, install Dbtvault. You can download our worked example. You can set up Snowflake. They offer a 30-day free trial with $400 of credit, and then you can start data vaulting. Quite a low entry process, as mentioned. So yeah, I think that's everything. We have a website all about, we have blogs, all kinds of things about what Datavault is and how you can learn more about it. And of course, we have a Slack channel, as we mentioned here. So yeah.